All right, let's start with Matt Preem from 247 Sports.
How do you prepare for a guy like Jamar Jefferson? Seems like everyone has had difficulty stopping him.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Matt. I mean, look at last week. Comes right out of the gates and goes to the house, right? Great vision in the outside zone. Is patient, very patient runner, and uses his vision very well. And then when he hits that thing, he hits it. He's a bigger back that has that explosive step that he hits the crease, and he's got the speed to take it the distance. So, as always, it starts with being really disciplined and physical up front to control our gaps and be able to, move with that outside zone schemes that they run.
James Crapia, the Oregonian.
And a little bit of a follow-up to that. Tackling was a challenge a little bit at times early, particularly late also against tempo. It kind of combined, though, with were they doing things out of 12 personnel that you guys just hadn't seen or weren't expecting between the tackling aspect and the tempo aspect of, that it seemed to bother you guys?
Well, it was mostly –
oh, no. Todd muted the wrong person.
I did. That's on me. Sorry, I can't get you unmuted, Coach. There you go. Sorry. My apologies.
Todd, they asked me to tell you to stop pushing so many buttons, man.
Overwhelmed over here.
Yes, there was, as in always every football game, there's some things that, you don't see that you've got to adjust to in the game. And more particularly in the last game, there are a lot of formations that, they had not shown through the course of this year or last year. And obviously the way they ran their offense. And so we had to adjust on the fly, to get set up there. And we're working more through the first quarter and fighting our way out of situations and still managing to get takeaways, and which was awesome to see. The tackling portion right out of the gates, right, James? We missed a tackle, fit right on the edge, free hitter. That would have been a great way to start the game. So, we continue to emphasize. Today we emphasize, and the guys did an unbelievable job. We just got to keep growing forward. We know there's certain areas that we're not to our standard right now, but guess what? That's football and growing forward to meet those standards. And we improved in a lot of different areas, but obviously, to the standard that we want to be. That in a lot of cases the other night, that was not it. But in a lot of different areas, we did do a good job. We just got to be a lot more consistent.
Annalisa Hall, Daily Emerald.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time. A big focus this week for me personally is Kayvon doing a featured story on this guy. So my one question for you is, what's the biggest impact that he's had to the team this year, and what kind of sets him apart from other athletes that you've experienced in the past?
Well, he's extremely talented. He is extremely talented in a way that he understands the game. He has the gift of being able to work with others as well. And we're looking forward really for him to just, locking in and simplifying and growing, in his own role, as an every down player this year. And that's what we're excited to see him do.
A.J. Jacobson, Rivals.
Coach, Oregon State likes to spread it around their tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, and their passing attack. What are the keys to stopping them through the air?
Well, they do a really good job of using formations to create windows that they want to attack. And the quarterback, he is really, really comfortable and understands, how they're trying to open up certain windows with certain formations and get defenses into certain things. And you can see the growth in his operation, from last year to this year. And so it's definitely going to be a challenge. The play action matches the run game very well. The boot game matches the run game very well. So we're going to have extreme discipline with our eye control.
Eric Scopel, 247 Sports.
Andy, anytime a cart comes out for a player, you probably think the worst. Were you, I don't want to say surprised, but I mean, it seems like Noah's back at practice this week, and I'm sure your emotions were other places on Saturday when he had to be taken off like that.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a tough situation. You're in a dogfight of a game, and to have someone, go down like that. And then, obviously you've got to refocus your heart's in a certain place, your mind, but you got to refocus, and you got to lock in on the task at hand. And there's been just a lot of challenges this year that have required us to do that. And there will be more to come. And so, we're very proud of our guys and their resilience, and it's just the consistency to do so.
Julian Minnesone, KZI.
Coach, you guys aren't strangers to facing Tristan Jeudy. Obviously, you played him last year in the rivalry game. Can you take anything from that game, or is the majority of the preparation and film work done for this season, given how much you talked about him growing from last year to this year?
They definitely have adjusted some things. They've adjusted some things from last year to this year within the offense, and but you know we do take from last year. In the offseason, preseason scouting, we take a lot from last year and then move forward and what's new this year. And again, they do a really good job with their personnel and moving their personnel around to create formations and to make you work in the pre-snap. And that's one thing that, we've really challenged our guys in the last couple of weeks. And honestly, last week we got challenged the most with it, with all the unbalanced formations and all the triple option formations, that we had to face. So we had a lot of work going on last week. And so we got to carry that over and making sure that we're operating in the pre-snap this week, because they're going to give us some, they're going to challenge us pre-snap.
Ryan Thorburn, register guard.
Andy, if memory serves, I think Jordan had an interception of Herbert for you in the Las Vegas Bowl. Is it kind of surreal having him here with you at Oregon? And what was it like seeing him make such a big play for you the other night?
You know what, Ryan? It really was. And just for Jordan, for him to jump in here and do what he's done, as we spoke about from the onset, when you guys asked about him, he's a remarkable young man. And he's been resilient in so many ways. It's never an easy transition, but he's done an unbelievable job, played multiple positions for us back there where we've absolutely just needed it. And no complaining, great attitude, jump in there. And so for him to make a play like that, at the end of the first half there, obviously Kayvon had a huge block in that situation there to spring him free. That's the mentality we got to grow on. That's the effort we got to have at practice. If we practice that way, we'll continue to get opportunities like that in games, and we'll capitalize on them.
Matt Preem, 247 Sports.
As good as Jamar Jefferson has been, their offensive line seems to be pretty improved as well. What have you seen from that group?
Extremely athletic, Matt. Let me tell you, the way they run the outside zone, those guys are moving. The D-line is working to keep up with them. And again, they complement that with some downhill pound run game, and it's a good combination what they got going up front. We're going to have a big challenge for us this week as well in the run game. The best O-line that we've seen, and then obviously a back that is extremely talented, and he's a big back now too. And so we've got to do a great job this week, continuing to grow with our tackling, with our discipline and our fits, and then our finish and our tackling.
Ashley Conklin, register guard.
Andy, what was kind of the process in getting Jordan Happel here to Oregon? Did he kind of reach out to you guys after last season, or did you kind of go after him, or what was kind of the process back and forth that way?
No, he had gone into the transfer portal. The whole process works like that, and he'd put his name into that deal, and then he had a lot of options, and things to go do, and people, but after the fact of sitting down and deciding what he wanted to do, after putting his name in the portal and having the opportunity to talk to a bunch of different people, the way it works with the NCAA, we were able to. This is his home state. He wanted to come back home. He dreamed always of playing at Oregon. And so this opportunity here for him to jump in and know the defense and be able to jump in here and communicate it and lead back there and obviously help us in multiple positions, has been huge for both sides. So we just got to continue on. He's got to keep growing. There's areas he's got to get better at as well with his tackling, and he's excited to do that.
James.
It was a tough way to make hay for both you and Joe from a third down standpoint. I don't think he planned to walk into the game with one called run on third down. But for you guys, it was third and manageable all night for them last week. Looking ahead to OSU, because their splits on third and short are so good with Jamar, how do you try to shore that up, particularly on the front where you can try and just fill lanes a bit better if they do go heavy? Do you try to correspond with personnel like you had with dime when it's third and long? Do you correspond with personnel the other way when it's third and short?
Well, part of that too is a lot of these teams are running tempo on third down. So to be able to correspond with personnel, they got to let you get it on the field. And if they're going tempo, you can't get it on the field. And so through the course of the game, when you can sub, we sub. You know, and there's obviously situations where the tempo got us last week is our substitution mechanics weren't on point. We got to do a better job. And that starts with me making sure that we're subbing when they sub so that we can get guys in the game and get them fresh. And when they don't sub, we can't sub. And so, you know, that comes up a lot on short yardage and shorter yardage situations on third down where teams don't want you to sub. So they're not going to let you get the personnel you want on the field. So you got to play it as is.
Jerry Thompson, Ducks Illustrated.
Yeah, Coach, fortunately, number 2 Phillips dropped the pass on that last play for UCLA. But looking at the video, you know, Jamal Hill was chasing him. Hill turns his head to look for the ball. I don't understand why Jamal Hill doesn't turn his head and look for the ball. He'd had an easy knockdown or an interception. Once that receiver turns his head, I don't understand why the DB, even when he's chasing, doesn't turn and look for the ball.
You know, it's a constant work in progress. You know, we've talked at length about that and how we're finishing on level 3 when we're in position. There's no question we got to keep working. And actually that came up more than a couple times today at practice where there was improvements on what you're talking about, Jerry. And there's young players out there that, you know, are fending to be in position and make plays. And now we got to grow forward with the confidence to do exactly what you're talking about. And we will. And there was plenty of examples of that out there today. So hopefully we can continue on progressing with what you're talking about and make those, you know, the next opportunity.
Max, Scoop Duck.
Yeah, Andy, as you know, the game wore on against UCLA, we saw them favoring the run. I think they ended up with 20 more run plays than the pass play. How did that kind of change your approach once you saw that they were favoring that during the game?
There's no question. Getting lined up to the formations, you know, that they were giving us that they hadn't ran, you know, we were working through that, make sure just to get our numbers right and the triple option fits. I thought I was done with the triple option leaving the Mountain West, but obviously that didn't happen. But thank goodness for that experience because we were able, you know, we didn't tackle particularly well, and that kind of led to some things there. We got to get ourselves in better position and positive angle tackles so that we can get some knockback tackles when the team runs the ball, you know, 50 times and they're falling forward for 2 yards. That's 100 yards right there. So if we can continue to get better with our tackling and grow in those areas and not, you know, be more efficient with our fits, then we'll grow. But ultimately at the end of the day, you know, they were able to stay there. They kept themselves in the game. So they were able to keep running the ball. And, you know, we weren't perfect, but, you know, given all the situations that we were up against there, we're pretty excited with the guys' resilience. We just got to be more consistent. We went on a run there where we were getting off the field and then we took our foot off the gas, to be honest with you, at the end there. And we gave up a series that we shouldn't have gave up. And that's the bottom line. And so we're talking about working hard all week to take advantage of every single snap, every single series from start to finish. That's our goal this week.
Last question, James.
KT has been so close to wreaking the kind of havoc you want. Andy, how do you close the gap of, in some cases, inches? I mean, obviously you've seen it on the tape. I don't need to go through the plays with you. How do you close the gap of tenths of a second and inches of the hand? Yeah, there's no question. Well, number one, we can't press. We can't get flushed because that, you know, that's going to cause other issues. In the pass rush game, he was more diligent this week with his angles and his get off, and that's where he was that much closer. We're right there, you know. And obviously, at the end of the day, we've got to do a good job in the secondary with the pre-snap disguise. We got to make the quarterback go to his second or his third look, and that's where it comes into play. And so it's always about the whole defense working together. It's about the coverage helping the rush. It's about the rush helping the coverage. And when we get in sync there, you know, everything, you know, the pressure on the quarterback will improve. Obviously, last week we had a few more takeaways. That will continue to improve as well. So the coverage working with the pressure working with the coverage, and then the pre-snap, all of it coming together.
Thank you, Coach Avalos. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving.